your two hosts. I'm Tisha S. Waddell, former city council representative for the 3rd District in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House representative for the state of North Carolina, the 43rd District. Good morning, Mr. Floyd.
Good morning, Chief. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I am very affirmed this morning in the positions that I was talking about around Cumberland County about some of the races that were taking place. I saw a lot playing out the way I thought it would. I There were some surprises, there were some shockers. There were some things that weren't a surprise, but that still didn't make me smile or make me very excited. But Mr. Floyd, it was election Tuesday, and by Wednesday we had all of our results in. You know what blew my first before we jump in? Do you have any announcements for us?
Just one, Chief, and that is Representative Lucas is having his endowment fundraiser at Fayetteville State this coming Saturday from
Okay.
5 to 8 o'clock, and it'll be a floating type thing.
Okay.
That we want to start one at Fayetteville State. So if you, and it's alumni of Fayetteville State, so if you want to attend that, yeah, I think it will be at the Student Center.
Okay. Um, Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, I got it back. I got it back.
Hmm.
And that's good. I'm glad to hear that he's doing that. That's good for Fayetteville State. I think it's great for their alumni to come back and give in. That's one of the things, Mr. Floyd, that it seems like HBCUs lack the most is aggressive fund raising by their alumni. So it's good to see an alumni of Fayetteville State take lead the charge in that regard and set up our foundation to be able to put money back into the coffer and help other students in that area. Kudos to him. Uh, Election Tuesday. We had our results by Wednesday. It blew my mind that it took so long for Cumberland County to upload their results. I called you at like 8:15 and I was like, Mr. Floyd, where are the numbers? And you were like, the early vote number should be in. And I was like, there's nothing there. You said, what did you tell me? You said, I'm watching what?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I said,
Yeah.
but
I'm gonna tell the
but
people. You
when you
said I'm
know,
watching a western.
because I know based upon the way the law has changed, is that 7:30 is the
The
moved to the
cutoff.
magic number,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot was uh, could not take place.
You said I'll
So
check in about 10:30, which is so consistent for you, Mr. Floyd, because even when you were on the ballot and I called you and I was like, are you watching the numbers? You were like, no, I'll check in later. And I
yeah.
just was like, he's so cool. Because when I was on the ballot, I was like this.
No, I mean, I mean, once you get into that, you begin to understand how the system is able to,
Right.
how the system tabulate, and
Right.
you're
And
gonna
that you really sometimes ought to just sit back and let the
sit back.
process
I
play out
mean,
instead of driving yourself crazy. So, Mr. Floyd, I think 52 of the 54 precincts had come in for the county. And I saw the top three, and I was like, I called it. I said these were going to be the top three, and they each had like 8,000 votes. This tells you how ignorant I was of how big their district is. So I text Kurt, I said, congratulations. I knew you'd be in the top three. He said, it's not over yet. I said, don't worry about it. It's still going to pan out the same way. And sure enough, so the next morning when I woke up, there were like 32,000 votes in for each person in District 2. And I was like, oh, I was really bugging because 8,000 votes, it definitely was not over yet. But it still panned out in Cumberland County that the top three vote getters were Pavan Patel, Kirk Deviere, and Henry Tyson.
yes,
What are your
yes.
thoughts about that race, Mr. Floyd?
Well, what I look at is that it's still four Democrats, and that's going to be is it four, five, uh, makes seven. Okay, it makes up a seven,
Mm-hmm.
but there's going to be two Republicans. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll have
So
five
we lost
Democrats.
two Republicans on the board because two walked away, Michael
Yeah.
Booth and Jimmy Keefe, but we gained two back. But the ethnic composition of the board is different now. What's the ethnic composition going to be?
The ethnic competition would be 4-3.
So four Caucasians and three black people.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So the makeup would be different.
Mr. Floyd, what do you think that this is going to do to this board?
It will not be business as usual.
It will not be business as
Business
usual.
as
We
usual.
have a lag. There's a lag on your end, and I'm not sure if it's. Are you seeing the lag?
Say, but no. Uh-uh.
Okay, there's a lag on your end. Just bear with me a second. Let me see if I can figure out what it is because I want today for everybody to be able to really get the full gist of what we're talking about. Let's see. Give me just 1 second. Okay, let me look at our YouTube page. Say something to me. Let me see you talk to me.
Testing.
Okay. We're just gonna roll because it is recording and it does tell me that the actual recording is higher than the quality of what I see. So let's just roll. Mr. Floyd, so we see those three entering into the board. Were you surprised at all? I
No.
know that you said
No. No. No.
you didn't even let me get my question out.
No, I was not surprised.
So it was no surprise to you that we saw the rest of the ticket for District 2 fall the way that it did.
The only thing that surprised me was that Commissioner Stewart was at the bottom.
That didn't surprise me, and I'm gonna tell you why. I think that the aggressive nature with which she campaigned the first time, we just didn't see that the second time. And in City View today, she offered up the explanation that she experienced some loss and that really kind of dampered her competitive spirit. But we just didn't see that. And I think anytime you think about an election, you have to have a fire in you to want to win. You cannot go about the process of running a campaign sort of half-heartedly because that will show in your
Well,
numbers.
Tisha, if I may say, you have to look at the community that I live in, and they vote on how well I like you.
Yeah,
Okay, and so it's not what you can do, but how well I like you.
right.
And so, yeah, you know, that's that's how that's how we roll. So I don't think that what we have seen in the past of the county board of commission will be the same as it going forward because Kurt know how to work both
Yes, he does.
sides
Yes, he
of the
does.
aisle, and also by working both sides of the aisle, what my community do, irregardless, is that working both sides of the aisle. When we go into the poll, we are concerned about whether you are D or an R,
Right.
not how your action, may have an adverse effect on me.
Right. And
So,
both Pavin and Henry Tyson are um independently well off. So Pavin's family owns, I think, a chain of hotels. I think they also have some ties in real estate and some of the, if I'm not mistaken, I think Pavin Patel's family has something to do with the tropical smoothies in Fayetteville. So they have their own money. Henry Tyson's father is a judge. Henry's into real estate. They have this independent financial standing. So they're already tied in to the power players. Now, when we talk real estate, Mr. Floyd, you and I both know that the developers and the people who are in real estate really run these boards.
well, they are your largest contributions.
Absolutely. And so the fact that these people come with built-in relationships, I think that we're definitely going to see some different dynamics. They're not attorneys, they're not just run-of-the-mill business people. They come with these built-in relationships and including Kirk Deviere because Kirk Deviere has been in politics for the better part of what, 10, 12 years?
City council,
City
county
council,
commissioner,
county
city
commissioner
council,
now,
state.
and
Yeah,
state senate.
yeah.
And so he's got also those relationships. At one point, I thought for sure we were going to see Devier going up to Washington, D.C., which we still may, because I think that he's a very polished, very consummate political figure. And I think that we could definitely see that in his future.
Well, Tisha, I think Kurt is really a shrewd politician,
He's a shrewd, that's a great
and
word.
and if you look around Cumberland County, if you look around Cumberland County, you will see
You're frozen. Oh, you froze right in the middle of getting ready to say something. Let's see if you unfreeze. If not, I'm gonna have to send you out and bring you back in. I can I can't hear you. You're
Yeah,
still
I think it's
frozen.
now
You
you
were
frozen
frozen,
again.
Mr. Floyd. So I need you to go back and talk about what you said about a shrewd politicianer. And if you look around Cumberland
It's
County, what
true.
you will see.
Well, if you look around Cumberland County, there's a red sea, okay,
Yeah.
and it's not a blue sea. So Curtis
You have to
Rule
be
enough,
able to work both sides of the aisle.
yeah, but it's hard to when of the 100 counties in the state, about 21 are blue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so when you look at around our community, it's not it doesn't fare well for a person to for as an example to run for a U.S. House seat.
Well, it doesn't fare well for a Democrat to run for a U.S. House seat.
Yes, but Curtis is a Democrat.
But go back to the comment about being a shrewd politician.
You can be a I mean, but again, see, around our community is heavily a red sea.
Right. I guess so. This is what I'm saying. And I want to be very clear so that people understand that when we use the word shrewd, there's no negative connotation to that. Generally speaking, I'm saying that he is smart enough to understand the layout and the landscape. If you
But
look at
when
it, this is where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to say, if you look at Cumberland County over the last, I'm going to say 20 years, Kirk's fingerprint is on a lot of what we see because he was in the background before he was at the forefront. So
that's
he
Cumberland
understands.
County, Chief. That's
Absolutely.
Cumberland County. But
Absolutely.
usually it takes about 7 counties, and those other 7 counties
To be able to
in our
carry a
county
statewide
split.
election.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
county is split.
No, no,
We,
no, no.
we
I'm moving back. I agree with you. I'm moving back
okay.
to the conversation about what he will be able to do at the county commissioner level,
Yeah.
based upon the fact that he is very very well versed in how politics works. I don't think that anybody on the current county commissioner board is going to be able to dictate to him what he
But
ought to do
I
or
agree
how
with
he
you
ought
on
to
that.
do it.
I agree with you on. I mean, I agree with you on that part.
Hmm.
But like I said, he is screwed there, wherein that he know how to work both sides of the out. In that particular perspective, I agree with you on that.
And I
But
agree with you about what you said about going to the national level. If you need that support, if you know it's not there, you're not even going to beat
he's
your head
not going to
against the
do
wall.
it.
Yeah.
It's not wise because we are about 344 in a house district takes somewhere between 7 to 800,000.
Mhm.
So our community makes up a third of a district. But what they have done was to split Cumberland County into two congressional districts,
Mhm.
which sort of give us,
Dilutes.
yeah, his voting strength. So I don't think that he would do that.
Right.
And given where we are today with our party, I know you'll talk about that later. Uh, we need to revamp
Oh, for
our
sure.
party.
For sure. So let's go to the Cumberland County Board of Education. The Cumberland County Board of Education is going to see some new names on their board, Mr. Floyd.
Well,
And one of the new names that they're going to see is former Mayor Jackie Warner.
mhm.
So what do you think about Jackie transitioning from being the mayor of Hope Mills into kind of serving in this capacity as a school board member?
Well, I see Jack as being quite naturally very independent.
I think so too.
I see that, and for Dr. Conley, I think that they have extended his contract for until 2028.
Hmm.
So he still have the responsibility of governor, and then you're gonna have Mary Hale, a former
Yes.
principal, is
Who is
also.
taking Alicia Chisholm's place. And Alicia Chisholm had been there for quite some time. And I will say this, I love, love, love Alicia Chisholm. And I think that she was very responsive whenever I needed to reach out to her. My hope is that Mary Hills will come in and just run with the work that needs to be done and do so in a way that just really helps our students and our parents in Cumberland County schools.
Well, you know, Tish, you can only, what you look at. There's only I forgot the gentleman name that was on the city council. There's only one pie, and that means that all that money is poured into that one pie. So how you want to, I mean, how you want to share that
Divide that
pie?
pie. Yeah.
That's all. That's all you can do. I mean, you looking at money from the state, you looking at money from the federal government, you looking at money from the county board of commissioners, and all that money is put into one pie. Now, how you cut that pie is what those members need to look at, and quite natural. Uh, uh, the a decision maybe about a month ago is to look at Smiths somewhere other than Fort Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be a key issue there. So if I was a minority on the board of county board of commissioners, just like the key issue for two Republicans was the civic center. So as a trade-off, I would like to see that being done. Both projects today is about equal. Smith is about 160. The county project is about 170 with the total with the parking deck and the civic center, you know, itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And beyond infrastructure, the county, the Board of Education is really going to need to get a handle on teacher retention, because remember we had the conversation about, now since those bonuses, since that money has run out, what are they going to do to retain these teachers? So they're really going to have to, when you talk about that budget pie, this board is really going to have to get down in the nitty gritty about this budget pie, to have some conversations about how to not only build new infrastructure but also retain qualified teachers, and create a space where academic instruction is truly taking place in these in within the walls of that infrastructure.
But teach one thing that you have to look at, from a state level. The state, members of the both sides of the aisle believe that many board, educational board, sits on too much reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But you have to have reserve, for whatever the whatever the future, may bring. The county, I think last year went into its reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And so county, Board of Education went into its reserve to continue programming, and they cannot continue to dip into their reserve and then keep the same uh, amount, they keep the same leverage, going forward.
Right.
So, but on the same time, the county provide, as you know, money to the school board. So if the county wants to increase their funding to the school board, which is a political suicide,
Mm-hmm.
is to raise fees. I know I don't like to use taxes. I'm like the you all politicians raise some fees.
That's exactly what y'all do. Y'all will raise a fee in a minute. So we take a look at the House of Representatives, District 44, Charles Smith, an impressive win over Freddie De La Cruz. Congratulations on that. Diane Wheatley, an impressive win over Janine Ackles. Congratulations on that. Mike Colvin, another impressive win over Leonard Bryant. Congratulations on that. So we're looking at congratulations for District 44, 43, and 42. When we come to NC Senate District 21, we see Tom McInnes handily defeats his opponent. So congratulations again there. When we get to Senate District 19, we see that Val Applewhite mightily defended her position as the incumbent. Congratulations to Senator Applewhite in Senate District 19. And then when we get up to the Court of Appeals, now this was one where you were really having some conversations with our audience about understanding the nature of what this looks like when we talk about um, Republican versus Democrat, right?
Hmm.
How did the courts shape up in your estimation, Mr. Floyd?
Well, right now it's hard to say, Teach, because you get a better picture. I think it's November the 15th
Okay.
after the campuses. So at present, I think it's 11-4.
11 Republicans.
and 4 Democrats.
and 4 Democrats, which means that if anything has to go before the courts, it's very likely that if it's a Republican initiative, it will likely be supported.
Yes,
Okay. So
it'll
we can come back and talk about that as we draw a little closer. How's our House and Senate shaping up, Mr. Floyd? Because
well.
I know we were talking about when we looked at. So before we get into the House and Senate, let's just go ahead and knock the easy fruit off the tree. Congratulations to Josh Stein, who bested Mark Robinson in this election. I know we were talking, and a lot of people feel like those allegations that came against him, the whole Black Nazi situation, really deterred his campaign. So it wasn't so much his rhetoric or the things that he was saying, it was more the allegations that were leveraged against him.
Well, yeah, that's true. And again, that's politics.
That is politics.
That that's that is politics. But when we look at it from the local level, there are certain things that need to be done from our local level that is going to have to be done in Raleigh. And one of those is the food and beverage taxes. We need additional funding to help us provide educational funding, and we need funding to help us with our infrastructure uh, there. And then with two, we need money for special projects. And right now, although we have 3 Democrats and 1 Republican, uh, for that hotel, I mean, for that food beverage tax, which the county is going to need to help pay for the civic center. Right now, I don't see but 1.5 person that can possibly carry that water for the county.
So when we look at the governor's race, again, we saw Josh Stein winning that election heavily, and then with the lieutenant governor. And you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Floyd. But is this the first time in a while that we've had both a Democrat governor and lieutenant governor? Because I can remember it being a Republican governor and I think a Democrat lieutenant governor. And then we flipped over to a Democrat governor and a Republican lieutenant governor. Is this the first time we've had 2 Democrats in those seats
I'm
in,
not
in a little while?
sure, Keisha. I'm not
I
sure
could
because
very
I
well be
remember.
wrong.
Uh, I'm not sure because when I got there, I think what's the name that was Purdue was the
Bev Perdue. Hmm.
was the governor. Then after her, I think it was McCrory,
Hmm.
and
And he was a Republican.
yes, okay, and then under
Did
Cooper,
Bev have a lieutenant governor that was a Democrat or a Republican?
which one is it?
Bev Perdue, Governor Perdue.
I'm not sure, Tish,
Okay, I don't remember either. I don't
because
remember either.
the person wasn't that active,
Right,
and then the person the lieutenant governor responsibility is simply to preside over the Senate and then function and then vote in case of a tie. But I don't
right,
ever foresee that happening. And carry on the duties and the responsibility that the governor assigns to him or her.
right.
So although Hunt won, it positioned her, uh, uh,
To
let's
be a
say
tiebreaker.
yeah, 9 years from now to run for governor, because
Right.
most likely Stein would run again for governor because she can serve 2 terms.
Mm-hmm.
But in his position, he is a little bit better off than Cooper because uh, you know they was able to break the supermajority on the House side,
Which
but
means
not
that
the Senate side.
the Democrats picked up 1 seat. Before we move into that discussion, I do want to just say quickly, congratulations to Rachel Hunt on securing the lieutenant governor position. So, Mr. Floyd, let's talk about that breaking of the um of the supermajority. So we know that last session the Republicans went in with this ultimate um just the golden ticket. If the governor vetoed something, they could quickly just turn it back around because they had the supermajority. There's a difference between supermajority and majority. Explain that.
72 and 30. 72 on the House side
Hmm.
and 30 on the Senate side. That
Is
means
the supermajority?
yes.
Okay.
Anything
Versus
less,
majority.
yes, yes,
Why does supermajority carry the weight of being able to overturn the governor's veto?
because you have a 2/3, but you have 72 of the
Because you need
120.
two-thirds of the chamber to
Yeah,
do so.
yeah. You have you on the House side there's 50. I mean,
We
on
still
the
have
House
the
side
super
there's 120.
and the Republicans still have sit with the supermajority. We still have the Republicans demonstrating a supermajority in the House, right?
Yes, they have a majority in the House, and on the Senate side they have a super majority,
So there's a
meaning
supermajority in the Senate, just a majority in the House.
yes, which
Okay,
all which they still set the agenda.
got it. Let me ask you this, Mr. Floyd. So given that they only need one more seat to make them have supermajority, essentially, right?
Yes.
They could have a Democrat acting as a phantom Republican to give them the supermajority.
Well, what you see now, Teach. When I was there, I looked at my community, and politics is about negotiation. So,
Negotiation.
so if my high, if my community is like in Fayetteville, need a high school, and if I can get $161 million to build a Smith High School, then I got to look at building that high school. So I may vote to override a
The
veto if
veto.
I can get a commitment for $161 million.
Because it's
Or
all about negotiation.
now, and the reason for that, Chief, is that it is the county responsibility to build schools, not the state. So if I can defer taxes increase, I'm sorry, fee, to get you $161 million, I got to hold my nose,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and cast that ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remind you now, I don't like it, but I'm looking at not having you to receive a fee of $161 million to pay for the school itself, as
Mm-hmm.
an example. So, politics is about negotiation and
Absolutely.
how I. But you have to look at it. All the bills. No, what I mean by all, geez, the Republican is still going to control the calendar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the bills that they are going to run first are going to be Republican bills. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be very difficult to get a bill in the House with 4 Democrats on
Mm-hmm. So they're
it.
going to have to work across the aisle. So listen, people, when you start hearing the rhetoric during the next election cycle that your Democratic candidate or representative voted with the Republicans, you need to ask yourself this question because we're trying to teach you how things get done. You need to ask yourself this question: did they bring anything back home? Because the reason that they're crossing the aisle is not because they want to be Republicans, it's because they understand that in order to bring something home to you, in order to be effective in their position, they have to be willing to work together across the aisle on different measures, also remembering that a majority of the votes are bipartisan that take place in the House and in the Senate, with the exception of some of the more
A stream bill.
controversial ones.
I mean, there's going to be a difference on the stream bills,
Right.
but how they twist that and how our community perceive it, they would say that Floyd has voted with the Republican on a majority of the bills. Well,
When
85,
everybody,
ninety
when that's
percent
the
of them.
case for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stop
But,
falling for the okey doke. When people try to make you feel like, and I look, I'm not a Democrat. I'm just trying to help y'all understand how to stop abusing your people. Stop falling for the okey doke because when your own party comes out and sells to you that this person worked across the aisle, they have an agenda that they're trying to move forward and who they want there. But if your person has done something to bring something back for your community, think Floyd, think Devier. If your person has done something to bring back resources into your community, they had to work across the aisle. So let's stop allowing, not less, because I'm not a Democrat, certainly stop allowing these narratives to cause you to beat up on the people who are really working for you.
well, teach them to say this going forward. Cumberland County will not receive the monies from Raleigh that it has gotten in the past.
Right, because
It
they
will,
just don't have the representation to get that to make that happen.
that will,
Unless, and see, this is why I said if you want to see things move in Senate District 19, vote for Simone Pemberton. If you want to just vote according to your party, vote for Val Applewhite. What we saw happen was the Democrats voted along their party because there's nothing that came back into Cumberland County, and not because she's not trying or not willing, but because it's not possible. Because unless she's willing to work across the aisle, the people in power are not going to give her anything.
well, teach, what you have to understand, teach about politics. I'm not going to reward you, teach, and you can let Larry know too when you talk with him for slapping me.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to reward you for
And when you
slapping me.
stand up and you have such a staunch Democrat perspective and you're not willing to see the value in anything other than your Democrat perspective, people are not going to work with you. I would be interested in seeing if in her second term, if Senator Applewhite is going to make any Republican friends and build any bridges between her side of the aisle in the Senate and the Republican side
Now,
of the aisle
now,
in the
well, wait a
Senate.
minute, teach now. What you're going to have to understand now, we know how to use flowery words.
Yeah, but I want to see the flowery actions.
Well, we know how to do that when we talk back with our constituents. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so you
I,
have to be, cognizant of that. But the actual thing of it is, and we talked about it, Josh Stein has a little bit better negotiating.
About
Uh,
that much, right?
yeah, yeah.
About the width of that space between my fingers. Mm-hmm.
So he can do that. But the thing, but what you have to look at, Tish, the Speaker of the House has before him, just like you on the City Council, all members, and he has that whatever you're going to call it, that board, and he knows who is present and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
I will place a veto on the not me. Uh, will place a veto override on the calendar every day. And if I can look out there and see that there's
All
one
you
that
need is
pushes,
one person to be absent.
yeah, I'll run that bill.
That's all you
Okay.
need
So it's going to force those Democrats to
to
be
come to work.
present 100% of the time because if the bill is on the agenda and it's just a rollover, I can pull it up for a vote at any time. And
See,
if I,
that's
now,
process. You got to understand process. Yes, sir.
now, if you leave and go to the restroom, okay, and I see your seat is vacant, and if I didn't see that you didn't vote on the previous bill prior to, it's an opportune time, you know, because they can adjust the calendar any way they want to
Right.
during the presiding, of that session.
It's all about the logistics of it. And so
So
he does not have a comfortable enough lead in the Senate or the House in terms of who's
in the
sitting
house,
there. But
in the
either
house,
way, he don't have it no kind of way
yeah.
because the supermajority is in the Senate and a majority is in the House. So he has there's no wiggle room for him. The Democrats are going to have to show up and be consistent and be persistent in order to hold the line. And they're going to have to all be on the same page. There can be not one Democrat who is willing to walk across the aisle and side with the Republicans, because if there is one, then that wraps it up for him. And the reality is, Mr. Floyd, we talked about this. There are several Democrats in the House who have been mistreated by their own party because they brought resources back to their community because they were willing to work across the aisle, and they're still there. With that being said, like I saw the worst attack ads on Garland Pierce, the worst attack ads.
Mhm.
I saw the articles in the paper that talked about I think his name was Brandon in High Point, who was being dragged by his party because he brought resources back into a poor community that needed resources.
Mhm.
So these are motivated Democrats. They are not, in my estimation, there's no loyalty to a party
Well,
that punches you in your face.
well, you know, one thing that when I was in Raleigh, and I'll say today, I don't pay you to discriminate against me.
That's right.
I, so when you look at appears going forward, if he ought to want to run again, he is from a rural area. Okay, if you understand what I mean by rural,
Hmm.
his votes cannot be down a party line
That's
going
right.
forward. If he ought to run again, now that's one thing. Now, when you look at Cunningham, you look at Brandon, you look at Willingham out of Rocky Mount. Those individuals are really upset with the party because the party attacked them. So they're going to be Democrats,
Right.
but they're not going to let you intimidate them. You know they have returned,
Right.
and you can say what you want to say, Teach. You know, I'm going to support the party, but I don't see none of them out there working
Right.
beyond the General Assembly. And what happened is that they began to look at their own election, not the Democrat Party as a whole, as George
Right.
Reese mentioned, is that it's no longer a straight Democrat Party as it was in the past for the County Board of Commissioners. It was just one Democrat ticket, and all Democrats ran on that ticket.
Well,
Today,
let's talk about this concept of straight ticket voting, right? Because North Carolina definitely demonstrated that we are not a community of people that practices straight ticket voting as a general rule of thumb. And we proved that in the fact that we elected a Democrat as our governor, a Democrat as our lieutenant governor, a Democrat as the state auditor. No, what's the position that Josh Stein just came out of?
Josh Stein was Attorney General.
As an attorney general, and a Republican as our president.
Well,
Because in North Carolina, 2.5% more people voted for a Donald Trump ticket than did a Kamala Harris ticket,
what he
which means that we have demonstrated as a community that we are not going in the ballot box just voting straight down D.
well, our my party have talked about the grassroots, and thanks to media, the grassroots now have access to media through their cell phone, and they have begun to see how the party has been manipulating them. Now, at the national level, they talked about the working class tips. They talked about Social Security. They talked about inflation. They talk about the high price of gas. So that's what was affecting the grassroots people. And so they just say, hey, you know, I'm getting tired of you talking about these things, but your action is totally different. And so, those
The
persons
message of the
normally,
Democrat Party is not resonating with the working man and woman.
well, we used to, but we have gotten away from that. See, teach anytime.
Nationally, they are saying that your party is starting to be known as the party of the elite.
Well, and that's what is hurting us. When you look across the country and you look at 50 states and you look how red it is, okay, how red it is, and you look at North Carolina and you look at the county that, say for instance, we talked about this before, Don Davis, okay, I mean, it was a toss up, but
Yeah.
since Don Davis know how to work on both sides of the aisle, the party did not visit his district. Now,
And
I'm
how do you
reminding you,
think
now they
that
went
that's
to
gonna how
Greenville.
do you think that's gonna play out nationally? Because Don Davis is in
He won't.
Washington, DC. So is he gonna be reaching back to the party to say, let me work with you, or is he gonna just keep doing what he's been doing, handling his business?
He gonna handle his business because he gonna handle his business if he wants to continue to remain a representative from that district.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it it's just like in my case, in my 25 years, you know, in public office,
Mm-hmm.
and you give me less than $100, you know, I got to look at my grassroots district and see what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they are loyal to you, when I saw you spend $1.4 million on somebody else
Right.
and you only give me less than $100, and it caused my campaign person to redo campaign reports because you reported it on the 25th, the same day that our reports are due. And so I, in my instance, I wish they could have kept that, giving me dollars.
Keep your little money.
Yeah, I mean, I would have gave you $100 than to go
Yeah.
back out and amend reports. And
Yeah.
that's what one of our representatives have to do today is to go back and amend reports because
Yeah.
the person that was his treasurer did not do it properly.
Yeah.
I'm not calling no names, but that's something that has to be done. But on a whole, Tish, my party is going to have to revamp.
Right.
I mean, common sense would tell you, but it won't happen, Tish. I'm glad you let me talk to you about
Mr.
this.
Floyd, it's going to have to happen. I think that they're having to have some real serious come to Jesus meetings in the Democrat Party because I think that there was an idea that this message of and really quickly, let me just say this before we move past our state level. I want to congratulate Tim Moore on his win for District 14. I want to issue a congratulations to him. He's been a friend of the show. He's most certainly anytime that I've had to send him a message or ask for assistance, he's most certainly been very responsive. And I just think that regardless of political party, we see people moving into positions who are doing work. They're doing work. And so just do great work for us, Mr. Moore, as you float into this new position. Mr. Floyd, so that leaves the speaker seat open.
Mhm.
That's going to leave the speaker seat open. So let's see who will fill that seat now.
Well, I believe that Representative Hall will become the speaker, and I will believe that they all will become either the rules chair or the majority leader there, which I think that would be worked out with Hall because I think Hall will become the speaker,
Yeah.
and those are the three key positions on the Republican side, and that's the speaker, the speaker pro tem, the rules chair, and the majority leader.
Yeah.
So those are the four positions. And like on our side is called the minority leader there. So going into the uh, the January session, which they normally meet, like I think it's the last Wednesday in January when they reconvene, and it will be the long session, and it will be the session in which they will prepare the budget. They will receive a budget from the governor to begin to look at it, and then they will then receive a forecast of revenue projection.
Mm-hmm.
So if if that's the case, by April after April the 15th, around April the 20th, you will begin to see a budget being tossed around. Although you see just discussion,
Mm-hmm.
but because our taxes is April the 15th, and so we will know about that revenue projection that they gave us a forecast on, and that's when you can start seeing whether or not our persons here are able to dip into that revenue.
Right. So let's just very briefly talk about the national race, Mr. Floyd. You and I both were remarking earlier today about how red this map is. And I think that this should speak to what we're saying about the Democrats' messaging not resonating. Listen, first of all, the Democrats made a huge mistake in appointing the nominee to the ticket. They should have been honest about President Biden and his mental capacity because if you worked with him intimately, you knew before he sat in that interview that his cognition was beginning to be a little bit different than what you'd want to see at the national level. This is not something that should have taken them off guard. There should have been conversations about who was going to run for office prior to this. So either you rock with him and you believe that he's the best for the party and you do that all the way throughout the ticket, or from the onset, you encourage a primary that's legitimately going to put somebody up against him who is going to be a formidable opponent. Has never won a primary election. Why would the Democrat Party believe that they can appoint her into this position and then cross her over the finish line?
Well, teach that. Let's let's look at the fact.
And let me say a national primary because it's inaccurate. She did win a primary, I think, in California. No, she ran unopposed, didn't she? Anyway, go ahead. Go
Uh,
ahead.
you know, let's look at the fact when you start scrambling uh, the eggs. Okay,
Hmm.
when you look at the fact is that we can talk about this, but Biden was the sitting president.
Yes, he was.
It's not likely that you're gonna have a primary, when you already have a sitting person
Not
in
likely,
that.
but it can be possible.
Well,
If that sitting president
what I'm
is
saying,
showing incompetencies and you know you need to get him
you
out and
creating
he won't
chaos
leave.
you're creating chaos before you even get started. Okay, that I'm just looking at the avenues. Okay,
Hmm.
and then if you if you if you look at that from that particular perspective, then the other question of it is, should he have not announced earlier than the 105 days prior to the election to give whoever the person that's going to run on that ticket an opportunity. Now, if you didn't point Harrison as the nominee, then the party itself would have been chaos, okay? Because she was the vice president, and number two, she was an African American. There, it would have been, you know, sort of like we just going to abandon the party altogether because they mistreated an African American, and the African American community would not have gotten behind her.
So this is we're talking about clearly we're talking about the decision makers, not the people that are the voters, because the voters abandoned the party anyway,
What
as is
what
evident
what I'm
by the
saying,
vote.
we're looking at we're looking at the top of the ticket. Okay, she had a short window uh, there, and we're looking at, do we want to create chaos? We are, uh, because he only gave her 105 days, and then again, you the other party tied her to Biden. Uh, everything, and she had.
She tied herself. She had an opportunity to distinguish herself,
But
and she
see,
said there's nothing she would
you're
have
not
done differently.
you're not you're not I mean, and I admire her for not for not going to the left of Biden, you know saying that some of his policies was ineffective, and then that I thought that they should go left or go right. That's a sense of loyalty, you
See, and
know
I think there's no room for that in politics. I think that there's no room for the idea of um I need to go along to get along. I think that's the problem. And I think that that was demonstrated in this election.
well, she's demonstrated her loyalty to Biden because they could not disassociate her, because the same thing we talked about the lieutenant governor, and the governor, because I don't know how you going she is his running mate. So, there has to be a sense of loyalty. You didn't see J.D. Vance criticizing Donald Trump with some of his comments and some of his decisions. There's a sense of loyalty
Yeah, but
at
I
that
think that
level
we're
that they
talking
play.
about two different issues because JD Vance was not the at the top of that ticket. Kamala Harris
But
was.
but what I'm
And so
saying
when
though,
Kamala Harris go ahead because
I,
I'm not going to forget what I want to say.
now I mean I understand what you're saying, T, but there's a sense of loyalty to that. You don't, you know, there's an old saying there that I read that if you're going to condemn someone, you know, you wait, and once that person steps down, you condemn that person to death, or a strong wind will come along and uplift the tender grounds in which you rest upon. Okay,
Okay.
You see, so there's not a time there. Even if if the mayor and the mayor pro tem, they're not going to criticize each other. There's a sense of communication law. That's
But
what
if
I'm saying.
there's something that the mayor does that is not in the best interest of the community that they serve, it's in the best interest of the mayor pro tem to call that out. And that's not called criticizing. That's called making a statement of fact. And I think that the issue that a lot of people have with the fact that Harris did not separate herself from Biden is that people did not feel that Biden's presidency was effective for the people. And because
Well,
they didn't feel that, they did not feel comfortable or confident making a decision to vote for Harris if she could not herself distinguish herself from his presidency. I
I
think that you can separate yourself from someone without dogging them out.
I mean, when you look at where he is, as a vice president. Remember, it's a president, it's a vice president, vice lieutenant governor, vice pro tem. You don't have your own identity per se. Okay? You don't have that.
But she was the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, and she exercised that, and it was detrimental, the vote that she took, but to some, in some's perspective. But
Yes,
I think more of interest, I'd like to know how the Democrat Party, and I'm not in the party, I can only see what I'm seeing them say now as a result of the results of this election. But how does the Democrat Party internalize this outcome, and where do they go from here?
teach. We need the question that many of us ask: Are you carrying? Look at the red. Are you carrying us too far to the left? That's what we have to look at. Are you pushing us with an agenda that most of us don't want and don't accept? But you want us to accept this agenda going too far to the left.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think that the Republican Party capitalized on is the dissatisfaction that the average American feels with their quality of life and the quality of their representation, because the average American family, and when I say average American family, I mean the majority of people are not living with some of the issues, many of the issues that the Democratic Party made their top three. So the average American family is not faced with the idea or the concept of having to have an abortion every time they turn around. That's not the average American family. The average American family is not faced with the idea of having to immigrate or having to work through immigration issues, because the average American family was born and raised here in America. There are families that have immigrated here, and there are families who have married and have immigrants as a part of their family. But most certainly, when we talk about the vast majority of people, and even those who have immigrated, have done so in the average American family, have done so through the legal course of action. And I always use as an example my very dear friend whose immigration process I was intimately acquainted with, as my example of what that looks like. So most people, what was being discussed by the Democrat Party just was not resonating with them. It just was not, it wasn't hitting home for them. And there was this disconnect between what was important to the average American family and what the Democrat Party was saying we needed to be concerned about. And the third thing that was the disconnect seemed to be this illusion that the average American family gives a French fry about what a celebrity says to them that they must do. This celebrity culture is really like, we're all scratching our head, because most of us who are tied in some way and paying attention to celebrity culture realize that every person that was paraded on that stage is in some way tied to a man who now has heinous allegations leveraged against him about some of the most deplorable things, and that we're being told that there are so many more, that this is a part of the culture of Hollywood. So we're now all side-eyeing Hollywood while the Democrat Party is trying to parade Hollywood in front of us as the decision maker. So I just think that there's this huge disconnect, Mr. Floyd, because I think she could have taken this election. There was a point where I told my husband, I think she's going to win. And it was before a lot of the things that I just made mention of started to really be kind of thrown at the people. I think those things being thrown at the people were the things that really clinched the loss for her.
Well, well, Tish, yeah, I'm just simply saying, Tish, to you,
Hmm.
our party has moved too far
To
to
the
the left.
left. They did a
That,
Beyonce to the left, to the left.
yeah, you know, it has moved. It has moved that way.
Are
And
you
then
all having
on the other,
conversations about shifting back centrally, or is that conversation happening?
I don't, like I said to you earlier in the program. Thank you for letting me discuss it, but I don't see it. Okay, I don't see it. I
Enough
think
said,
when
Mr.
you see
Floyd.
that
Enough
you have
said.
lost. Now, when you see you have lost over 500,000 registered Democrats, okay, and you get persons coming in after each other with the same agenda,
Yeah,
you have mistreated your your members. You have, for instance, the, the African American male. All right, you kick the African
yeah,
male to the side,
yeah,
and then you say the black females that are running.
yeah,
I'm the first black elected appointed person, you know, for
yeah.
this position. Well, the black male just say, if you're all that great, you don't need me.
Right,
Wrong. You see.
right,
So if you're gonna be a party, you should be a part of togetherness.
right.
You don't say you don't put the black female over the black male or vice versa. You know, you don't put the the one who belongs to Divine Nine and the one who work at Taco Bell. The one at Divine Nine walks in like they're the emperor. The one at Taco Bell still think they're supposed to serve the Divine Nine. Okay,
Hmm.
you see, that's the mentality that our party have moved to, and then the manipulation.
It's
You know,
disgusting. Yeah, I
you
think
know.
in any instance, that manipulation culture is so disgusting.
So would our party change? I don't. We are comfortable with just fitting in the sit-in, but the African American community uh, is getting a little bit tired of being used,
Yeah. The
and
word that
so
I'm associating with it is renaissance. There's a political renaissance taking place where people are beginning to you're probably going to hear somebody's going to hear me say that, and somebody with a real platform, like a much larger platform than the one we have, they're going to pull that and run with it, and you're going to start hearing that there's a political renaissance taking place where people are beginning to wake up and have their own identity outside of the constraints of their political party or affiliation. And it's going to shake up the way that we are seeing elections transpire. I think that this was a very telling election. This is the first time in a long time that a Republican president has secured the election, not just with the electoral votes, but also the popular vote. So I think that definitely says something. And I think that more than anything, Mr. Floyd, we just have to really learn how to understand what the people are saying is important to them.
well, what people are saying that's important to them teach is their pocketbook.
The pocketbook and the protection of the freedoms of their freedom. The
That's
protection
that's
of their freedom, their
that's
pocketbook and
what they
their
want.
yeah,
I,
they
I
want to
mean,
feel safe and they want to feel like they can make some money.
that wasn't even with some of the comments that was made. That wasn't even part of the scenario. But
Hmm.
what people were looking at was their pocketbook issues.
Yeah.
They look at that inflation. If you want to curb inflation, or if you want to look at price gouging, you had the opportunity to do that as one of your roles
Hmm.
as the sitting vice president. You could have spoke with the president and say, "Let me take this role on to
Hmm.
address that." So one thing that you have to remember: any one of of whatever the Trump campaign or the Harris campaign, our country is based on fees. So if you want to take fees from Mary Jane, you also gonna have to look at how can you generate fees from Tom. So either one, somebody is going to pay for it.
Right.
Doesn't matter. So only thing I can say to you, Teach, If you want to give $50,000 to small business, it got to come from somewhere.
It has to come from somewhere.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so because we
You
depend
can't just
on,
make it up.
yeah, we
Yeah.
depends on the fees that we receive.
And the people are smart enough to understand that now. And so they're no longer disillusioned into thinking that money just grows on trees and that
Yeah.
there's no repercussion for giving out free money. Mr. Floyd, how do you want to sum up this conversation today?
Well, it's continue to be independent thinkers and look at your pocketbook issues.
Hmm.
That's my concern too.
And I'll say that I always, it seems like every time I read my word, I'm always convicted by something. But I was reading in Psalms and I was convicted by Psalm 72 because I saw in Psalm 72 David praying for there was a prayer that went forward for leadership for the king. And most certainly nobody is perfect. And so even as I read Psalm 72, I said, God, why would you want us to pray this for people who are not even doing right? And very clearly, I began to understand that we pray for people regardless of what they're doing because we want them to do right. And so the prayer is not, we're not praying because they're great. We're praying because we desire for God to make them great. And so I will just encourage everybody, regardless of how you decided on any of these tickets, on any of these races, to truly be praying for your leaders. And if you have a hard time knowing what to pray or how to pray, Psalm 72 is a really great blueprint. And so I think that as we move forward and we get to see what everybody's going to do after everybody's sworn in, this is absolutely an effective way for us to maintain our peace and to do what we can to make people great, and that is to pray for them. So, Mr. Floyd, I really don't have anything else. I'll just say tell a friend to tell a friend, like, share, subscribe, and follow, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Great show. Mr. Floyd,
Okay.
do you think she just needed a little more time, or do you think they needed a new message?
They
Or
needed a
both?
new message.
Okay.
Both.